For further analysis on the situation in Syria, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Al-Ashry. Mr. Ashraf, welcome to Qnews. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, delving into the political developments that is taking place in Syria, and what does the appointment of al-Shibani as foreign minister signify for the Syrian interim government strategy and diplomacy?
Good evening to you and to the viewers. Of course, it's another step by Ahmed al-Shara assigning the Mohammed al-Bashir government to have a new foreign policy and a foreign minister. Choosing al-Shibani is going to be a great step for contacts with the regional and international forces in order to broaden the connections and to enhance the Syrian efforts to remove the sanctions and prepare Syria for a new phase where the temporary government will play a role for the next 3 months and establishing the new power in Syria and resolving many of the issues about the internal interlacements and to have a big fan of contacts and dialogue with the regional and international forces in order to achieve a number of objectives that al-Shara government wants to lift the sanctions and the flow of humanitarian aid. Third and fourth is to have a great deal of international recognition of this new administration so as there will be more stability and there should be a rupture with the past of the Assad regime and to have more cooperation with the international community to see that there are some developments in Syria that is worth of notice by the international community to help Syria economically and politically and to help the return of the displaced Syrians with understandings with the countries that host these displaced and Syrians, and instead of an immediate flux of 7 million return that will be disturbing the internal Syrian situation that is not qualified for absorbing these people because reconstruction is needed to absorb these people returning.
Regarding the recent visit of senior U.S. diplomats to Damascus where they sat with the interim government, what are the implications of this meeting, particularly when they sat with Ahmed al-Shara?
For sure, this is an openness because the Assistant State Department came with other top officials who are visiting Syria for the first time since 2012. The meeting was well calculated and well prepared by the U.S. to explore the horizons of cooperation with Ahmed al-Shara and his new administration in Syria. I believe that the American side managed to get a number of answers through posing some. Barbara, the assistant in the United States, said that the meeting was fruitful and there is a great deal of cooperation that has started to be because al-Shara has shown himself as a pragmatic person and he has succeeded to get American assurances of removing the bounty of $10 million to the one who would be arresting him. So al-Shara is not haunted by the US anymore, but at least he is emphasizing that there is a new phase of Syrian-American relations that will be followed by successive steps. Now the ball is in the Syrian courts, so they have to take some decisions to have a civic government and to form a committee for preparing a constitution and to prepare for a national conference that will host 1,200 people from all strata of the Syrian government, including the scientists, the military people, the civil society, and everybody, in order to discuss some steps to lead the transition. This will be starting this week, and this is a message to the US, to the international community, and to the Middle East that there is a new path for Syria. It's important to preserve participation, not domination.
Mr. Ashraf, speaking of the Middle East and the regional developments we're witnessing, how significant is Qatar's decision to reopen its embassy in Damascus after 13 years, and what does this indicate about shifting regional dynamics?
For sure, there is a great deal of intersection between foreign relations. The Germans, the Americans, the Italians, they opened the embassies 1 week before the fall of Bashar al-Assad. The Arab world should have embassies. Egypt and Saudi had it. And other countries has cut the relations with the Assad regime, and Qatar was like this. Now they raised the flag on the Turkey also opened an embassy last week, and there will be a visit of the Turkish foreign minister to Damascus this week and meet with al-Shara to prepare for a visit by Erdogan to meet with Ahmed al-Shara the day after next. So this indicates that there is a great deal of regional handling and international handling with the new administration in Syria to find a way to deal with the new scene in Syria. But some Arab countries are still in the wait-and-see mode to see what kind of government is going to emerge and who will be ruling Syria and what kind of assurances Shara will be presenting so as his group would not be labeled under political Islam, so as not to repeat the tragedy of the Muslim Brotherhood in rule, the same happened in some other countries after the Arab Spring. So there is a great deal of international and regional involvement with Damascus, but some Arab capitals are still in the wait-and-see mode till things are clear and all to ensure that all Syrian community segments are part of the decision making.
Yeah, and speaking of Arab countries, I would like to integrate Iraq into our discussion, as the Iraqi Prime Minister al-Sudani has said that he is assessing the situation in Syria, and based on this, he will take an action. How does this comment or approach to Syria reflect broader regional attitudes towards Syrian sovereignty and territorial integrity?
For sure, the Syrian-Iraqi relations is very complex and very dense. And you know that there are borders between the two sides, that is 1,200 kilometers between Iraq and Syria. And there has been smuggling of terrorist organizations and militant groups, and with the idea of establishing the Sham and Iraq state by Zarqawi. And when the Prime Minister of Iraq says that he is assessing the situation, he wants to get guarantees that the new administration will not be cooperating or close to the militant groups or the terrorist organizations, and that there will be more control of the security and army over the situation, and that there are guarantees for building a new Syria with a lot of strategic partnership with the other Arab capitals, especially the next to Syria, including Iraq and Lebanon. So Iraq is taking time to study the situation in Syria and see how things are like, and because the steps in Syria are not as accelerating since Assad fall, and some political groups are not involved so far, like the coalition of Syrian opposition. It is not participating in any administration of the state, and none of them has been chosen to be even governors. So there is some resentment among the Syrian opposition and the coalition of Syrian coalition and some other parties that are still waiting to see how the national conference of Syria be like, and how more road will be paved for participation so as Syria can cooperate with the other neighbors, Iraq and Lebanon, and with other capitals in the Middle East and globally. And we are waiting to see what happens in Syria in the next days and weeks, and then we see.
Now, shedding light on Algeria as well, how do Algeria's comments about the UN peacekeeping mission in the Golan Heights fit into its broader foreign policy regarding Syria and the region?
For sure, Algeria managed with the Arab group to issue a resolution that extends the mandate of the UN troops in the Syrian-Israeli borders. Israel, after the fall of the Bashar al-Assad, removed the barrier with the Syrian borders and went 25 kilometers into the Syrian territory, and unilaterally removed the 1974 disengagement agreement that was signed in Geneva with the Soviet Union at that time and United States, and went to occupy certain areas like Jabal al-Sheikh, the Sheikh Mountain, and so Israel said it will continue to be there in Jabal al-Sheikh for years to come. And there is an Israeli occupation of Al-Qunaitara and the countryside of Damascus. This has been opportunism by Israel, political and military-wise, to abuse the vacuum in Syria to gain some things, and also demolishing and bombarding all the capabilities of the Syrian army. Till some estimated that 80% of the armament of the Syrian army equipment has been destroyed. Israel wants to entrench a new status quo by occupying the Syrian territories so as it can negotiate with the new government with certain preconditions and without any withdrawal. And actually Israel is usually saying their presence will be temporary, but it become permanent, the way Israel has been doing since 1948. This means that the Security Council did a good thing by extending the mandate of these troops of the UN for 6 months, and the Arab community should cooperate with the new government in Syria, and the pressure for the removal of the Israeli troops from the Syrian territories and vitalize the disengagement resolution and the agreement that has been signed in 1974, or else there will be Israeli occupation of the Syrian territory.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashraf. Sorry for interrupting you due to shortage of time. That was Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Al-Ashry. Thank you so much for your insights and for all the information you provided us with.